Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Chicagoan Focus, helping kids navigate challenging times. My name is Jane Ruby, and I am president of the League of Women Voters of Chicago. Thank you so much for watching this really informative presentation. I hope everyone there's some great information that everyone takes away with them. A few words before we get started. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy and education. The League of Women Voters of Chicago encourages informed and active participation in government while influencing public policy. We never endorse or oppose political parties or candidates, but we are political. And we do this in two roles. On one side, we have sort of voter service and citizen education, where we present unbiased, nonpartisan information about elections, the voting process, and issues. And then our action and advocacy side. So we are nonpartisan, but after study, we use our positions to advocate for or against particular policies in the public interest. And for many years, we've been hosting sort of this Chicagoan focus programming where we bring in speakers to talk about different topics. And I couldn't think, especially going into the holiday season, the new year, sort of the state of the world right now, I couldn't think of a more appropriate topic to have. And luckily, one of my best friends was available to do the presentation for us. So I'd like to introduce Seoyeon. She, in addition to being one of my best friends, she is also a blogger and a doctoral student at the University of Delaware, and she studies how playful learning supports young childhood development. Her work with the Partnership for Public Education connects her research to local schools and communities, advancing more equitable and accessible learning opportunities. Before pursuing her PhD, she studied public policy at the University of Chicago and human development and psychology at UCLA. Previously, she supported marginalized immigrant families as a community health worker for mental health services in LA County. Across her works, Seoyeon is committed to creating ethical, equitable learning environments that honor children's rights in diverse communities. Seoyeon is also a member of the League of Women Voters of Chicago. And yes, and with that, Seoyeon, I will turn the presentation over to you, and thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Seoyeon, and I'm really excited to give this presentation. So, today I want to talk about like four topics. First, I want to just generally introduce like basic child development stuff because we're going to talk about children. And second, I want to talk about like parenting 101. And third, it will be concrete ways to talk with children about difficult topics. And finally, I'll introduce some resources to connect you to connect. And just feel free to post any questions on the chat. And as a presenter, I always appreciate questions. So let's dive in. So I want to introduce this important framework. This is called bioecological model, and this model emphasizes the ecology of human development. That is, human development is not apart from environment and needs to be understood in context. This context ranges from individuals' temperament and sensitivity to family, school, neighborhood, and society. So in sum, children are not raised in a vacuum, but they are raised in context, environments, um, societies. And research has demonstrated that early experiences shape lifelong physical and mental health. Overwhelming evidence from developmental science, public policy, economics, and clinical psychology shows that 90% of the basic brain architecture is developed in the first 3 years of life. That is why early childhood is a critical and foundational period for lifelong development. And that is why we are having this conversation today. But however, like our brains also constantly change and respond to experiences, both good and bad, every single day. I am not really the same person that I was in like 10 years ago. I'm a very different person right now. So we constantly also change. So human brain is very adaptable and malleable, but especially during early childhood. So we are being exposed to diverse stress in our lives. And there are three types of stress. First is positive stress. It's like everyday stress, like taking a test or, you know, starting a new job or learning a new skill. It's stressful, but it's not really like too stressful that feels like eating you up. The second stress is tolerable stress. It is serious but temporary, and supportive relationships can alleviate the potential negative impact of this serious stress. The one that development psychologists or clinicians always focus on is toxic stress, and policymakers too. Toxic stress is stress that gets under your skin. That means that it's prolonged and strong stress, and it really creeps on all over you, and it impacts your health, physical and mental. And without adequate support in a relationship, the impact is just terrible. And for example, abuse, neglect, or exposure to violence um, could be one of them. Well, but like people, I think also often interchangeably use trauma and stress and trauma. So I wanted to explain a little bit of trauma. Trauma is extreme stress, and there are also like three or four types of trauma. And first, acute trauma refers to a one-time and brief traumatic event, such as an assault or car accident, natural disaster, or sudden loss of family member. And it can also bring about like PTSD. When this acute trauma is not addressed or treated well, it can progress into chronic trauma. And intergenerational trauma means transmission of trauma that gets passed down to the next generation and subsequent generations. And when these all like traumatic events are strong and prolonged, it might cause dysregulations or dysfunctional relationship in children. So that's why we are very, very, very worried about traumatic events. So in sum, like what promotes brain development in our children? I think is I think play, relationship, stability are often the factors that mentioned a lot for promoting development, and stress and adverse experiences will be the ones that might deter brain development of our children. So we briefly talked about like stress and trauma, basic child developmental stuff. Any questions so far? Are we good? Okay. So since I think talking about parenting a little bit, there's so many names for parenting, like everywhere, like authoritative, gentle, harsh, responsive, respectful, and generally, research suggests that warm, kind, whatever the name is, warm, kind, authoritative, and responsive parenting helps promote children's well-being the most. And I want to state like four pillars of this warm and gentle and respectful parenting. First is empathy. Empathy, as you all know, means that you try to put yourself in your child's shoes to understand what is going on in their minds, like what needs or emotions are bringing this behavior. How are they feeling? Like let's think about that, like before we like say something to our children. For instance, a tantrum might be caused by just unmet needs like hunger or like fatigue, or just like acute like transitions or something stressful. And my second pillar is relationship based parenting. Caregiving is more of a relationship building moment rather than tactics or hacks or regimens. And it is a serious work. It's like raising a human being. So in parenting, like grown-ups trying to put relationship first And to build this positive relationship, respectful caregiver treats children how they want to be treated. The research on relationships clearly demonstrates that positive relationships can be a powerful force in child development. Third, like we're not really our children's friends. We're parents. So with empathy and understanding, we still have to stand on our ground to guide our children in a healthy and constructive way. That is why like setting limits is very important. Setting limits is a way to pay respect to our children because children, you know, they get confused, and being confused is not really a pleasurable experience for children either. I mean, of course, discipline is not punishment, but a chance to learn and grow to build autonomous decision making, which will be a very, very, very important skill set to have later in your life, to make sound decisions. And finally, I think this is often like forgotten, but understanding of child development, like learning where my child is developmentally, is critical in understanding their behaviors. For example, a national think tank 0 to 3 conducted a nationwide survey called Tuning In. They found out that around 66% of parents believe that children should control their emotions by the age of 2, whereas research indicates children start developing these skills from 3 to 4 years old. So we want to know like where our children are to appropriately interpret their behaviors. Like you can find resources online. Like this is from Gazelle Institute of Child Development and Yale University. So it shows like stages of development. Like, oh, children are really like good at 2, but like they go wild at 2.5. Oh, they're happy at 3. Not so happy at 3.5. There's a like ebbs and flows in child development, and it's really helpful just to know and understand. So this is like a very just often used typology of parenting styles by Diana Baumrind, developed in 1970s. And these parenting styles, she made this based on responsiveness and demand. For example, let's see, authoritarian parents would not really be responsive to child's needs, but demand a lot from child by controlling and ordering them, like do this, do that. But like if they seek for you, like you might be away, like, oh, I'll deal with that somewhere else. Authoritative parenting style is characterized by high responsiveness and high demands, and it aims to create a balanced, nurturing, but firm approach where parents set clear rules, explain them, and encourage independence and foster open communication. And this is actually considered as a gold standard of parenting. And there's also permissive parenting. You're just like highly like responsive, but you don't set limits at all. Like, oh, like do whatever you want, So that would be a permissive one. And uninvolved is similar to neglect. So you don't ask anything, you don't respond, you're just So I talked about like authoritative style, and I aim to really like strive to meet that quadrant, but I actually have a confession to make. In these hard times, I find myself getting off the track from this authoritative style. Sometimes I get too upset about the news. I become, oh, sorry, I become authoritarian. I usually like, for example, give full autonomy to my child when it comes to the amount of food that she eats. Like you eat however, how much like you want. But nowadays, I say things like, "How can you leave food when there are children starving out there?" Like, I know I shouldn't like say that. And she's like, what? But where is that coming from? Because it's out of context. But um, yeah, so I become a little bit agitated a little sometimes, or sometimes I just feel absolutely privileged and grateful to be with my child alive and together. I feel like nothing else matters. Like you're here, you're alive, we are alive, and that's what matters. Then I sometimes let go of boundaries. Like, yeah, of course you can eat the whole box of chocolate for dinner, like it's okay, you're here with me. So it is indeed hard time to be a sane caregiver, but you know what, like life is not linear, right? Parenting is not linear. I usually don't even like the term parenting because raising a human being is a whole spectrum of experiences, not like, oh, you've done this, like that's parenting. It's not like it doesn't really have a clear boundary. It's, growing up together. And it's not like a skill or a method. And since it is a spectrum of experiences, it gets messy sometimes, I go like, oh, ricocheting all over the quadrant. And now, like, we are all struggling. So have compassion with yourself too. It's okay to not be the gold standard, gold standard all the time. So, like, I think parenting is more of a mindset rather than a certain like rules. And these are my parenting values. Like children are respected as a whole individual, not like a little adult or lesser adult. Second, caregivers understand children are individuals with their own minds and thoughts, like they're they're as a whole individual. And finally, caregivers understand that children learn by imitating and internalizing caregivers' words and actions. And they are expert in imitating you. Have you like had those kind of incidents where you didn't really notice what you were doing, but then your child kind of imitates and you're like, oh, oops. But parenting is important. Why? Because families provide the basis for lifelong development. Um, in and this is the person who made that ecological bioecological framework that I introduced at first. He's a developmental psychologist, and he's and I really love this quote. He said, in order to develop normally, a child requires progressively more complex joint activity with one or more adults who have an irrational, emotional relationship with the child. Like somebody's got to be crazy about the kid, like irrationally. That's number one. First, last, and always. And it really touched my heart, and it also emphasizes how being that stable adult or caregiver is really important. So, how to talk about difficult things? Let's jump in. Like, first things first. I want to make sure that you are the parent, like you're the caregiver or your teacher. That means you have the authority. And that is not by saying, oh, I have the authority, but you just inherently have that. And children know that you're taller than like young children. So the power dynamics is already there. And like these things are not about negotiation. We want to keep them safe, right? So in that context, I think it's really important, especially for young children, restrict violent images, descriptions, and videos. Like showing them showing them videos about traumatic events, that is not really teaching. That doesn't really help children understand what's going on because like they don't have that whole years of knowledge or context. But like this does not also mean hiding everything. Children are psychics. They know when something is wrong, even like before you notice. What I mean is not to intentionally bring them to a detention center, for example, rather just talk about it at home. That's like enough for young kids. For example, I talk about humanitarian issues with my child, but I try not to go on a full panic mode in front of my child. I excuse myself when I'm like having, oh, I can't really be with my child. I excuse myself. So try to keep your children out of stress. But finally, like validate and support. These are really important. Every child is different. Every child is different though. Like some have few expressions, few questions, while others like have a lot of feelings and a lot of questions. And when children are having a really, really hard time with a dramatic event, like just like take a pause, just listen, like pause, and try to support. And it's okay it's okay not to be okay. It is hard for anyone to sit in this hard moment, and you can provide loving touch or comfort in other ways, like with warmth. It's not about like specific words, but children remember how they felt when XYZ happened. So be their blankie, you know. So when we want to talk, like to start, we might want to reflect on whether or how to talk to children by balancing between being truthful and age appropriate. Like you don't want to scare the kids, but also don't want to lie to them, right? So it's important to talk about difficult stuff, but not in a way though, let's share everything, like I told you about graphic videos or violence stuff. So I think the mindset could start from, oh, I have been really influenced by current events and might have been acting differently in the past few days, and my kids might wonder what's going on. Okay. So the only thing the children should know is that they're not alone in these big feelings and that we got them. You know, we're here, we're there for them. So first thing is start with curiosity, like less lecturing, like less sermon, please, and more active listening. Uh, so try to put your opinions and ideas aside, like at start. You know, I know we have so many things we want to say and teach to our children, but like hold off for a second until your child finishes talking or sharing. Just provide your full presence and attention to what they're saying and try to just understand again, like empathy, their perspective. And it's easy to just laying out facts. Oh, okay, there's a mayoral election. People are going to choose a new leader for our city soon. Candidate A wants to do XYZ, like, oh, build a bridge or build more cars, or, you know, a candidate B wants to do A, B, C. Oh, they want to build more schools or build more grocery stores. Candidate C wants to do blah, blah, blah. They want to distribute more books to children or provide cleaner water. Like, whose ideas do you think will be most helpful for our city? You know, just like very simple language and easy to understand language. But there is no value laden language here, right? Like it's just facts. Oh, they have different policies. Like, what do you like? And see how your children will respond without commenting. Like, even if you want to say, oh, but that's not okay. But you just say, oh, I see. Or like, really? Tell me more. You know, and try to build upon what your child knows. It's easy to connect. Cognitive science clearly documents that children learn better when we teach things about what they already know. So provide guidance about what your child already knows. That's helpful for them to understand or learn better. Second, like talk proactively about the topic. So before and after the exposure to the news or events. Children listen everything, even when they're not listening. Um, so you can ask, oh, have you heard any scary or weird news like at school or like people getting hurt? And see, like send the feelers out. have you heard about XYZ? And if they haven't heard, you can proactively, like preventatively talk about these things. You might hear scary or bad things happening in our neighborhood. When you hear them, please share them with me. I'm always here to listen and keep you safe. Like you're safe with me. So, and avoiding more of if you hear someone saying XYZ, do not listen, they are wrong. It's more like, oh, I'm here for you. Because that's what like younger kids need to hear. So when actually we are in the process of talking, try to use like child's language, and we talk with words and body and play because play is children's language, right? And getting down to child's eye level, many adults kind of, even teachers sometimes forget this, but like that eye level is very important. And remember that young children cannot really understand abstract concepts. Do you know that now verbs are much, 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 much harder to teach than nouns? Like infants, like get nouns pretty quickly, but verbs are hard to teach because it's more abstract, it's more like, continuous. And use a calm, warm, and neutral tone. And because even from 6 months old, when they're babies, they start referring to caregivers' affect about something new or sort. So they see something new, and then they see their parents or caregivers. That's called like social referencing, and is one of the uh, ways that children develop language. And that's why your voice, facial expressions, and body language all communicate. They all tell what you're feeling actually. And again, like share more about the facts than values. Oh, like XYZ is doing bad things, like oh, like sucks. More like XYZ is doing things. Some people like it, some people don't. So it's more neutral tone, and try to apply to child's everyday experiences, like link it to child, because we, as I told you, as I said, like children learn better or understand better when it's built upon what they already know. But what do you do when they don't take turns at the playground? What do you do like, oh, when someone takes your toy? And try to like play pretend about the potential situation or the event. It doesn't have to be like spot on, like you don't have to create the whole scene of raid or something like that, but like imaginary things would be more helpful because play is their language. And I think this is very maybe like too granular, but I think it's really important. Like I want to change the semantics of consequences, like less judgment, but more support. We often say that, oh, if you do this, like I'm gonna take this away from you. But like think about that, like that phrase. It's also prevalent in adults' lives, right? Like if you do this, we're gonna take away blah 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 privilege. So if you want to make this kind of like consequence phrase, think about like what this would mean, and through this are we creating support or punishment? And based on your value, incorporate this kind of desired language constantly. And I think Mr. Rogers really created a beautiful song about what do you do when you feel mad, and it also creates that the changes the semantics of consequence. What do you do when you feel mad? Like, do you punch a bag or run as fast as you can? So it's more of how to support rather than, oh, if you feel mad, just like go away and sit in the corner. Like the consequences are different, right? So I think changing this language framework is very important. And use accurate language, like clear but not like sensational language. And we want to tone it down to children's level, but that doesn't mean like mushing facts. We can say like colonization is when people steal someone's land and saying that it is theirs. Or racism is when people treat you differently based on your skin color. These are facts, but it's not like sensational, right? Like it's not too explicit. and or XYZ does not want to help hungry children. Kind of fact, clear, but it doesn't really help have the value laden words, right? So just make it clear. I think it's helpful to make clear but neutral tone when talking with young kids. And I think modeling, not having all the answers is also different because important because being confident enough, it can show that being confident is important to be confident enough to be vulnerable. And it's totally normal to feel startled when you don't know the answer, especially when you want to be strong for your children, right? But nobody knows everything. So you can say, honestly, I don't know, dear. Any thoughts? Ask your child, like ask children. Um, but also because we don't want to just shut down and stay ignorant when we encounter new or uncertain issues, right? And I often hear a lot about like, oh, find the helpers, they're all around you. But actually, if you think about it, really, like finding helpers is a skill set. You have to know where your resources are and where the safe people are to talk. And it has a lot of components between them. So it's really important to practice from young age. So for example, huh, that's a great question. Like, I don't know the answer, but you got me curious. Like, how can we find the answer? Focus, like, so we want to focus on the process because children do not have the process at this age. So we want to build that process, right? Oh, do you know someone who might know? Oh, I remember Jane talking about voting. So let's call her and ask her. See, like it, and that calling her and asking, it also builds community, right? We are not just Googling or stuff. And it's, I think it's also very helpful to have let children know that they can communicate these things with other adults outside the parents. So not knowing is okay. uh, reassure, this is very, very important. At the end of the day, reassure them of their safety and love. Like I remember when I was a public policy student at U Chicago, my professor, Dr. Ariel Kaleo, she's still there. Um, I asked her, uh, like, I'm pregnant, but my partner and I, we're both graduate students. Like, we don't have money. And does it mean that, like, what are we gonna do with our child? Like, do you have any advice? Like, I was like 6 months pregnant, and she was like, you know what? I think just you need two things, stability and love. Like, at the end of the day, those two things are the most important things. And that really resonated with me too. So focus on building that, even though, this is really tricky too because not everyone is in safe environment, right? Especially in these hard times. But I think building that narrative, like helping children feel that they are safe and loved, at least loved, is really important. So focus on sharing the feelings. Like you can say you are loved, secure, you matter, you're special, and you're capable. And so we've been talking about like, oh, very just granular parts of how to talk, like language wise, but we also want to build like upon this, right? Amplify our message of like social justice or well, whatever we value. So in education, social emotional learning is a critical factor of lifelong healthy and successful development. According to James Heckman, the Nobel laureate of economics at the University of Chicago, social emotional skills have greater effects on life success and high uh, than other cognitive skills. So that's why like we also see SEL being emphasized everywhere nowadays because it's very, very important in like more long-term development. So it doesn't, but also people often get confused between, oh, so good social activities, good emotion, that means happy all the time. But that's not really social emotional learning. It's not a toxic positivity, but a full validation of emotions. So be an emotion scientist and try to like apply ruler approach. That means you recognize emotion, you understand that emotion. Oh, what am I feeling? You label the emotion happy, exhilarated, joyful, express that emotion, jump or cry, and regulate. You find like other regulation methods to for that suits your feelings or uh, situations. And this was developed by Yale Child Study Center. There's a like really great book on this if you wanna check on later. Check out later. So this is more about like what am I sensing right now, or what images do I see, what feelings are inside me. It's more about like investigating or studying what you're feeling, and children can do it. And it's been really important to build these skills from early on. So we ask caregivers to name the feelings, and that is also frequent exercises in preschools or kindergarten, because that's been really helpful for children to develop an emotional awareness. So talk about like how certain actions make them feel. You can say, oh, like, do you feel happy? But like more of, does it feel safe? Or does it feel uncomfortable? And that is the foundation we want to build during early childhood. So I think it's just important to ask children, like, how do you feel? What do you think? But at the same time, we don't want them to only self-care, right? We also want community care. We all So you can expand this question into how do you think XYZ, your friend or caregiver, feels? And moreover, how do you think that group of people feels? Like, so you can amplify that message of emotional awareness around these questions. Very simple questions, but just exposing them multiple times to this kind of framework really helps. So in early childhood, we our goal is to co-regulate, because when parents are not regulated, children cannot learn how to regulate their emotions. That's so in order for them to develop self-regulation, the co-regulation piece has to be very like set in stone, really stable. So I put some like empathy words, like I'm here for you, I love you, I hear you, do you need help? So just keep building empathy and uh, empathy, sorry, keep building empathy around the words and feelings. And encourage self advocacy. I mean, disagreement does not mean disrespect. I think this is really just hard sometimes between generations. You know what I'm saying? And self advocacy starts from birth, from like diaper change or bath time, meal time. Those small moments build big changes. And that does not mean that, oh my goodness, like you don't want to change your diaper? Let's not change the diaper. It's not like that. It's not coddling or catering to their every needs or every feelings or whatever they want to do, but just creating space, safe space to express their opinions and emotions without just shunning them. Oh, I know it's really hard. You don't want to change diaper. Yeah, it feels weird, right? But we gotta do this. So, but help creating that space for our children to advocate for themselves. That also is related to consent, right? Like if they don't want hug, we want to respect that opinion. And because true democracy honors the differences in opinions. Democracy is really not about, oh, like going this way. It means we all have different opinions and they're all valued, right? So respecting children's voices, even if you don't agree, that's a way to build our democracy. And try to like model inclusivity and build community around inclusivity, because as as I said before, children learn by imitating our actions, words, and feelings, right? So actively include diverse people around you, and just like learn about their stories. Oh, what are they celebrating? What are they eating? And find the common and different things between your culture and other cultures, and talk about it with your child, just without like judging me. Oh, like why do they do XYZ? They're so weird. Like, please. um and but also it's not about instilling certain concepts like, oh, you know what, like to be inclusive, you have to do blah 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 blah. But it's more about like planting seeds, right? Because if it's that exposure is really 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 more important than telling them, oh, you have to do this, you have to think like that. So I mean, I love James Baldwin, and I love this quote. I think it's perfect for raising our kids. Like, children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them. Chills, right? And well, I know this like things might sound all depressing around you, but we also have to build hope to move through these challenges. And even if your child responds, and to move forward with resilience, we have to show them like what we can do, right? Even if it's however it is small. So again, like ask for your children's ideas. Oh, if you were XYZ, what would you have done differently to win the election? Or if you were XYZ, what would you have done differently to help children? And what can you do? And what do you want to do? So, like, even if your child's response does not seem to make any sense, try to listen with care, because also expressing these ideas is can is also a way of promoting self-advocacy. And if you completely disagree, you can also suggest, that's interesting, but if you do that, I wonder how XYZ group of people would feel or think. What do you think? And that also creates um, a connection, that how child might learn empathy with other people that they don't directly see right now. So that also helps a lot. And do activities together, just again, however small. Like make art or bake cookies and share with your community. Like, just knock on the neighbor's door. Oh, I baked some cookies. It doesn't, at least my child washed her hands. And or make art donations to community events, or volunteer together at, like, even bringing blankets to animal shelters. Like, children love animals, right? And it does not require a lot, but it means a lot. And all these activities could help us all channel our big feelings and transfer them into meaningful sharing actions, and actually create changes through care. Again, little actions can create big changes. And I'm sorry I'm using James Baldwin again, but I think this is really, I think about this quote almost every day. Like, he said, like, I don't think I'm in despair. I can't afford despair. You can tell children there's no hope. So, okay, things are going bad, or something bad happened, traumatic event happened. We're not just sitting there, but we want to help them build the hope, even if it seems dire. And I think it's also important to read books with different perspectives, whether you like it or not. And it doesn't not also have to be super explicit about topics. Again, in early childhood, we are planting seeds and building from inside our children's minds. And also remember that young children are often very egocentric and cannot really grasp the idea of togetherness conceptually. They can't really understand what others are thinking. Like that skill starts developing 3 or 4, and keeps developing until they're in their 20s. So they have not yet developed such cognitive skills, not yet. So focus more on exposing them to different ideas, talking about stuff without fear or judgment. So children love books, and books can, in that sense, books can help communicate. And I also learn a lot about like how to talk to children by reading the books. Oh, I can maybe use this language later. You can think like that. And American Psychological Association Press has great books about scary events, scary news, or feelings, trauma. And May Storybook, like she has both Instagram and Substack, and she recommends books around different perspectives. Okay, but children are important, but caregivers are important too, right? So I think all your feelings are also valid. It's okay to break down and just try to model how you regulate your emotions. Like sometimes I just like cry a lot, and I'm like I'm just feeling very sad. Um, I'm gonna take a walk, and taking a walk, and children can learn from that, right? Like, oh, when you have big feelings, you can take a walk. And create space for your children and for yourself to check in. Like just knowing that there's support somewhere is helpful, I think. And for our children, knowing that you're there to support and listen means a lot. And be a leader, not a tyrant. True leaders admit when they don't know the answer and when they've done things wrong. Um, and again, reassure them of their safety and your love. And for yourself and for all your children, just be honest and use a lot of like empathy words. Create link to connect with your child. Oh, you know what? Like if you are in the traumatic event together, when that happened, I felt XYZ. So you're creating the link with the child, and it doesn't have to be like super deep or philosophical, just brief dialogues, like those nuggets to bring rapport. This creating connections around the values that you want to promote, that like means that amplifies in children's minds. And finally, take care of yourself. Like again, I briefly mentioned that co-regulation builds self-regulation. So when parents are not okay, kids are not okay. But also, I also said all your feelings are valid. I mean, it's a really hard time. I at least for me, I just bounce all over this. So take care of yourself. And finally, I love Mr. Rogers, so I want to conclude with his quote. And his one of his famous songs is "It's You I Like," right? And it's not just mean that, and he said, "I'm talking about that part of you that knows that life is far more than anything you can ever see, hear, or touch." That deep part of you that allows you to stand for those things without which humankind cannot survive. Love that conquers hate, peace that rises triumphant over war, and justice that proves more powerful than greed. So I think it also builds hope in my mind. And thank you very much. So if you wanna, I wrote a few posts about this topic. It's on my Substack, and here's my email address if you wanna send notes or have any questions later. Feel free to do so. And I'm ready for any questions. Thank you so much for listening. Hope it helped.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Seoyeon.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm remembering, it's similar to what you're saying. I remember this one thing about my son, like in the park, if he fell and scraped his knee, and I stayed calm and didn't react, just walked over to see how he's doing.
Mhm.
He didn't cry.
Yeah.
But if I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" He would immediately start
Yes.
crying.
Yes.
And I find in what you're saying, there's truth somewhere in there about that little that fits somehow in there.
Yes. Like because like they mirror that caregiver's affect and
Yeah,
expressions very easily.
yeah. And I got to the point where I was just like very nonchalant. And in the park, people would go, like, aren't you upset? Are you, and I would say, it's just the way we do it.
Yeah. I get it. Sharon?
Oh, thank you, Shayon. I found this very inspiring and in depth and such important insights. And I have a question for you that I genuinely don't know the answer to. And I'm thinking about this particularly because I have a granddaughter who's just going to turn 5 years old. And then I think
Oh,
about other children. And how do we communicate about school shootings? And
Oh,
what are the ways of and when is it age appropriate? What are ways of doing trainings in schools? How do parents, I mean, just talking about this, I'm so
I know.
terrified for her and it gives me such fear. And I really do not, and I'm sure there's complex ways, but what are the best ways for caregivers at different levels to address this problem?
Well, I think that's really, really also tough because in my perspective, those drills and school shootings are not normal, right? That is not, that shouldn't happen at all. And my child also has drills, and I think one time I just like cried that after that, she just told me that, oh, like, we had some like safety training today, and I just cried because it was the first time I heard that from my child, like directly. And it was just like, oh,
Well, they didn't let the parents know first that they were going to do that. So you couldn't be Oh my goodness. Because you would
no.
think they would at least let parents know so you could be there to
Yeah.
respond. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So that was a little bit scary, but I
Yeah.
don't think so. It also depends. I don't think they get at age 4 or 5, they don't get the concept of school shooting. And you can say like being hurt, children being hurt, or oh, some people have do not feel good about themselves. So sometimes they want to hurt other people, and sometimes they go to different places here or there, or sometimes it becomes schools. And again, just making it very brief but clear. It doesn't happen every day. You have to say like, oh, it's not just like everyday experiences. Um, So create like narrative around stability again. Oh, it does not happen a lot, and we don't want it to happen um, ever, ever, never, ever. But sometimes it happens, and stability and love, like resources. But at school, who do you trust? Like your teachers. Do you trust your teachers? Um, they are doing everything they can to protect you and other children. And they are going to do whatever it takes to protect you
Yes. Yeah.
because they love you and they care about you and us too. Like mommy and daddy or grandma, grandpa, um, we are here for you. So just make it, just bring it to a very like higher level because they can't understand like, oh, shootings, school shootings. That is like very concrete concept. So just bring it above to a higher level around safety and love. I think that's
Well,
at that age, I think that's
and I wonder at what age, so like I think for a 5-year-old, but I think older, and when does it become, and again, would it be downplaying it? I'm thinking, for example, even once like they're in like elementary school or something, if it could be, because again, my granddaughter, um, oh, they had to go into hiding because there's a tornado warning.
oh
No. Yeah. But and so maybe putting in that context, and of course you do
yes,
that, is like, well, maybe putting in that when there's danger, this is where we go, and these are the people who take care of us. And
yes.
maybe you don't have to talk about the danger if somebody's going to come in and try to shoot all of you.
I
But
think that's a
I mean,
great
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that's a great example because like there's like tornado doesn't come every day, but you
But
get
it's going to come, there's going to be, yeah.
yeah, but you prepare and
Mhm.
people around you are going to protect you. So
Yes.
you can definitely mention that example as an example,
Yeah.
like your tornado, we want to make sure that you're safe and sometimes
Hmm.
things happen. And
And I think with that, we have to move quickly because of that.
yes,
It's on its way. Yeah. But
Right.
so hope that helps.
Mhm.
Catherine?
Yeah. So uh there are a lot of traumatic things happening right now in Chicago with Border Patrol and ICE. And and the children involved in that uh, are especially under incredible amounts of stress. At what point or what markers um, are there that one should seek professional help? I guess. If a child, it's the news and then not, but when there's like, your levels of trauma and,
Mhm.
um, h- how do you, what are some signs for the need to do better, to do more than what a caregiver alone can do? Or, or am I even framing that correctly? I guess maybe I'm
Oh
not.
yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm not a I'm not like clinician, but usually dysregulation. So you can't. This child is acting totally different, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not temporary, and it's been prolonged for some time. And
Mm-hmm.
when you comfort your child, it cannot be comforted. So that's I
Okay.
think that is a very important sign.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure there are other signs involved, like bedwetting, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, a lot of community-based organizations, like the ones that I worked with,
Mm-hmm.
they have just like regular clinicians or um, counselors who can at least talk about these things and navigate
Mm-hmm.
where what this child needs. So
Mm-hmm.
I think finding those resources can be also really, really helpful. Like
Well, that
it
makes
doesn't have to be
sense.
like, oh, we're gonna go see a therapist, but before
Mhm.
that, you might want to be,
Mhm.
you might want to know like where my child is at, and yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, and and often they might not have resources. So yeah, finding those organizations, I like that idea. That's helpful, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
I can't really think of
Anyway,
one in Chicago, but yeah, I'm pretty sure there are many
yeah.
in Chicago.
Yeah. And for things that have to do with immigration and ICE, the ICER is a pretty good clearinghouse for things. It's the Illinois Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights.
Hmm.
And though they might not do it themselves, they're a pretty good clearinghouse
Yeah.
for what
Yeah.
one can find. I've thought.
Yeah, I think those are excellent. And also if you have some time to like look into different practices, sometimes they give you like, free consultation. So
Mm-hmm.
that could
Mm-hmm.
also be a way to just ask, oh,
Mm-hmm.
does my child need to see a clinician?
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Of course. Um,
Do we have any other last minute questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, Sion. This was so helpful, not just, in my selfish reasons as a parent of a young child, but, I think that this information is so helpful as, we sort of are constantly seeing attack on civil liberties, human rights, and, you know, uh, situations that young people in our country, shouldn't have to grapple with alone.
yeah.
And this information is something we can all kind of take back to not only sort of our personal family units, but also our neighbors and community and sort of larger advocacy work. So thank you so much for taking time out to talk with us today. And to
Thank you.
reiterate, there's many ways to get in contact with Scion, for any follow-ups, and I can't recommend her blog enough for really great information on how to talk to children about all different kinds of things. And I loved your use of James Baldwin and Mr. Rogers quotes.
Well, Jane,
Is point.
Jane.
And thank you. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
no, I mean like
Oh,
you
did I
got
cut out?
yeah, it's okay.
Oh, oh, sorry. Yeah, we'll edit that in post production. We're usually really good at doing that.
I
So
just
thank you to
yeah.
everyone for joining us tonight and have a great holiday season and we'll see everyone in the new year.